Hey, guys, my name is Paula Sun, but you can call me the Change Navigator. I mean, that's why you clicked on the podcast because of the name, right? All right, cool. I want to begin by saying welcome to my new listeners and welcome back to the Faithful Navigators. We are here in season 2, and I told you guys we would be doing some big things, and we are interviewing ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And today I have a very, very special guest. Her name is Miss Lauren Spearman, and she is better known as the Bounce Back Advocate. We are so happy to have her. She is a native of St. Louis. She is a mother of 2, and she has a passion for helping others to discover and cultivate their purpose. I could read a little bit more about her, but I want to give Lauren an opportunity to tell the navigators more information about herself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Pretty simply, I am an inspirational speaker who believes that you have never, done too much or you're never too far gone to bounce back. You can always reinvent yourself and rediscover your purpose and those gifts that have been lying dormant inside of you. And that's just my mission to, wherever I go, whomever I touch, to let them know that, because I think a lot of us have felt like we have to give up on our dreams because we're too old or we've had children. And that's the exact opposite. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose.
I love it. I love it. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And she says she wants to help people bounce back. And it sounds like um, she's right in the vein with what we've been talking about as far as navigating through change. And I know a lot of people are afraid of change once they get to a certain age. They really do feel I am too old to start over. I am too old to
Mhm.
venture out. But you say you can bounce back as long as you have a pulse, you can do something. So Lauren, share with the listeners, how did you come up with the name the Bounce Back Advocate, and what was that pivotal event that shifted you to this name?
Absolutely. So I wish I could take credit for it, but I cannot. I encountered an awesome mentor, Miss Ivy McGregor, who works as the director of social responsibility for Be Good. And in our first consultation with her being my mentor, she asked me to tell her my story. And I told her about my bounce back moment in 2017 after I'd experienced years of loss. I lost the relationship that I had been in for 9 years, the apartment we shared, the car that we had together, and also found out that my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. So a lot of people's 2020 is how I was feeling back in 2017. I was like, is there nothing else you can take from me at this point? And I gave up on God. I thought he'd forgotten about me. I was questioning him, and I thought that what I was going through was punishment for mistakes that I had made throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I disconnected myself from God. However, there were some people that did not give up on me. My pastor at the time um, counseled me and connected me to his significant other, and she began to pray over me and with me. I have a good friend that was in my life who began to speak life into me. And there were people who basically prayed for me until I could get to the point where I could do it myself. Because I was in that moment, I could not see God, I could not see his plan, and I could not see any worth in myself. So I was in a deep, deep, deep depression. And through them covering me, through me going to therapy, I was able to slowly but surely rebuild myself to the point where I knew that for God to bring me out of that dark place, it wasn't just for me, it was for others as well. And when I told her that story, my mentor said, "Oh, so basically, what you're telling me is you're a fan of the comeback story. You are a fan of people being able to pull themselves back up by their bootstraps. You are the advocate for them. You're the bounce back advocate." So, kind of talking through my story with her, she came up with that name.
Gotcha. I love it. And I love a good story. And you said so many different things. Being in a relationship for 9 years and then that ending and
Mm-hmm.
being in a depression, going to your church leaders. So what I hear is that you had prayer and therapy.
Absolutely.
Yes, prayer and therapy. And Wow, prayer and therapy. They both work together to help you come out of that situation. Um, so tell me, what did your depression look like during that time?
Mhm. So my depression was pretty ugly. I will admit that there were days that I did not shower.
Mm-hmm,
I did not get out of bed. I would either overeat
mm-hmm,
and comfort myself with food, or I would starve myself because I didn't feel like I was worthy of eating.
mm,
There were days that I was in a zombie like state to whereas I couldn't even properly care for my children all the way.
mm-hmm,
And I tell people that one of my aha moments was when my daughter, she was in the beginning of middle school at the time. And I bought her a cell phone just so that she could walk herself to the bus stop
mm-hmm,
and talk to me the whole way.
mm-hmm,
I was that much disconnected and lazy to get out of bed and walk her to the bus stop.
mm,
And at that moment, I'm like, anybody could snatch her, whether she has a cell phone or not. Anybody
mm-hmm,
could take her and I'll never see her again. So I knew that it was time to make a change. I knew that I had gotten way too far deep down.
mm-hmm,
You know, it was one thing if I didn't want to properly care for myself,
mm-hmm.
if I didn't want to, groom myself or put on clothes, but it's a whole other when I didn't want to be the proper mother to the kids that God gave me to raise.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I had to wake up.
So how long would you say this funk lasted, this depression? How long would you say you were in that phase of it?
It started for me in August of 2017, and I would say I wasn't fully out of it until probably February. So
Okay.
it lasted for a period of months for
Hmm.
sure.
Okay. Gotcha. And you said something also that really caught my attention. From what I heard, you sounded like you had a strong support system. And
Absolutely.
people don't realize how important it is to have a strong support system, even when you can't do for yourself, when you can't pray for yourself, when you can't see your way out. It is so important to have a strong support system. So, um, which brings me to my next question. So,
Mhm.
you recently launched a podcast. Now,
I did.
yes, and like I said, you had a strong support system, but your podcast is called Check on Your Strong Friends. And I want you to tell us about it because navigators, I had an opportunity to listen to a few episodes and I was really moved by the podcast she posted about grief. I mean, it was so authentic. You could just sit there and feel every emotion, everything she felt. It was like you could be in that journey with her. So tell us a little bit about Check on Your Strong Friends.
Sure. So my village at that time that helped me out of depression consisted of my pastor and his significant other and a childhood guy friend and my god sister. It,
Mm-hmm,
it was those, core people.
mm-hmm,
The people around me, as far as like my friends I hung out with, some of my family members, they could not see the depth of what I was going through. Like, just because on the outside, when you're used to somebody being the happy, bubbly person,
mm-hmm,
it's hard for you to even conceive that they may be having a mental health issue.
mm-hmm,
And so, with my personal experience and just with me seeing around the world different leaders committing suicide, whether it's pastoral leaders or whether it's Robin Williams, the actor,
mm-hmm,
Kate Spade, the purse empire,
mm-hmm.
seeing those people commit suicide, a went off on my brain. Like, we think that some people have it all together because of what they look like on the outside, because they
Mm-hmm.
have money, because they have success, or because they are spiritual leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't think to check on them. And
Okay.
a lot of times they need checking on the most.
All right. So let's pause right there. So you said something so true. When people are used to you being a certain way and you're around them all the
Mm-hmm.
time, they don't see the clues. They don't see
Mm-hmm.
the changes, the subtle changes. So can you tell the listeners what are some things that maybe we could be more attentive to knowing that someone has gone through something, pretty traumatic or drastic, what are some ways we can be more attentive, or how can we lend ourselves to somebody who may need support, but we may just be, used to them being a certain kind of way?
Absolutely. So everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is it's not the same, it's not a one size fits all. So
Mm-hmm.
just consider that person as an individual. And if you see them do the opposite of their behavior, so
Mm-hmm.
like if they are social butterflies and they become withdrawn,
Mm-hmm.
or if they are typically withdrawn and all of a sudden they want to go out and party all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you want to look for those behaviors that are not typical of the person. I
Mm-hmm.
always tell people, for me, it was isolation and hibernation. Anytime, and people knew that that was something that was not like me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm used to being that, bubbly, happy person.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went and hibernated, it was a issue that I could not express to my friends what was going on. I felt embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
and ashamed. And so I withdrew.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thing. But that's not the same thing for everybody, because I also have another friend who her thing was, like I said, going out all the time and partying all the time to try to drink her sorrows away.
Mm.
So, just paying attention to those changes in behavior, and the way that you can support also depends on that person. You want to
Mm-hmm.
ask them flat out, how can I support you? Because some people want you to be clingy
Mm-hmm.
and some people want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, it's acts of service, like take a errand off my plate or help me. And some people, it's monetary. Some people, it's just listen to me vent.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing who you're dealing with and asking them specifically what they need.
Mm-hmm. That's very good. So basically, we should be looking for extremes as far as behaviors,
Yes.
like opposites of what they're used to doing. Okay, so I got you started talking about the podcast and then I interrupted. So let's go back to it. So
Oh, it's okay.
check on your strong friends. I love, love, love the title. So yeah, keep talking about it. Let's go a little bit deeper.
So first season of Check on Your Strong Friends started out as I wanted to do a mental wellness podcast. And each episode I wanted to have a format where I gave a couple of anecdotes and tips and best practices. But quickly God kind of came in and did what he wanted to do with it, and
Mm-hmm.
with different things that was happening in my life, such as grief, or there's an episode where I got stood up for a date, and I talk about how that affected with my self-worth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like with different things I was going through, it became my own therapy.
Mm.
And even with the people that I was interviewing, I began to realize that although these were successful people, they had even had bouts with depression before. And it kind of took on a life of its own, to the point where now I am recording season 2,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking to, corporate divas who considered suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to, women who are naturally the strong friend, but are battling with infertility issues, and nobody even knows that they're depressed, that they can't have children.
Mm.
So it's become his podcast, God's podcast, and I
Uh-huh.
love what it's doing.
Okay. I love it. Well, I definitely can't wait for season two, and I have to go back and catch up on some episodes of season one. So that's awesome. Congratulations to you. And it's nothing better than following the script that God gives us. We can have plans,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when God shifts that thing and moves it from what we thought it should be, and when we go in that vein, in that flow, we can't go wrong with it, because God already knows who's going to listen. God already knows who's going to be impacted by it. He knows the timing and what needs to be put out there. So kudos to you for being in tune enough to shift and to navigate through that change of what you wanted versus what God wanted. So, with that being said, guys, we are interviewing Lauren Spearman, the bounce back advocate. And I want to ask you this. You do
Mm-hmm.
so many things, right? And if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken, you've transitioned from working in corporate America, making someone else rich, to now being an entrepreneur. What caused you to make that leap? And were you afraid? Did you hesitate? Tell the navigators about
I was absolutely petrified, because I knew entrepreneurship was something that I wanted to do, and I knew that I wanted to spend my time doing God's work and not somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
But I was scared as a mom to leave the job that had the insurance, that had the benefits. It took a COVID-19 furlough to push me
Mm,
into entrepreneurship. So, with this pandemic, there have been a lot of things that have happened that were sad.
mm-hmm.
But this was one of the things that I'm like, okay, God, I know that you did this for a purpose, because I would have never left that job on my own. I
Mm-hmm.
was raised, you don't quit a job until you have another job, and you
Mm.
keep a good job,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
flat out. So I'm just glad that God did what he had to do so that
Uh-huh.
I could be obedient to his will and not my own.
Uh-huh. I laugh when you said that you don't quit a job until you have another job. And I remember when you posted about being an entrepreneur, and I remember a particular comment, somebody, telling you, make sure you have another job and make sure you have this in
Mm-hmm.
place. And I just kind of laughed. I chuckled at it because it's just I understand that people are concerned, right? So people don't want
Mm-hmm.
you struggling. They don't want you making what they might consider impulsive decisions without you going through, your list of what you should be doing. But I thought it was so interesting when I saw that comment and you were like, I've already done this, blah, blah, blah. I
Yeah.
was like, and I just kind of chuckled, within myself when I saw that comment. So did you feel so you said you were furloughed during this pandemic. So
Mm-hmm.
did you get a sense of, okay, now is the time? Now is the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There was something within me that did not have the unction or the desire to apply for new jobs. I
Mhm.
can't even explain the feeling to you, but it was just like, it's not right. I mean, I don't want to keep going in this cycle. And if I'm going to bet on me, it's now or never. And it just felt right.
Mhm. I love it. If I'm gonna bet on me, it's now or never. Believe me, I know that feeling of not wanting to apply for another job. I get
Yeah.
it. I totally get it. Yeah, I've been fighting with that. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about the bounce back advocate. So, some people dream and they go after that dream or their vision, and
Mhm.
other people happen to be the answer to a problem, and the trajectory of their life shifts or changes. What do you think happened with you?
I think it was a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
It was always my dream to be a speaker and to help people and impact women. However, I feel like during this pandemic, God used me to be the answer to a problem. And the problem I feel is that we don't normalize the conversation surrounding mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Black community. It's getting a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time where it was like, Black people don't go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That's for crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're wearing a straitjacket and you have padded walls, and this doesn't happen. We carry everything and just try not to break and try not to show what we're going through. We sweep things under the rug, and that's what strength is. And I had to learn that no, we've got to dismantle this thing, and
Mm-hmm.
we've got to let people know that it's okay to not be okay, and
Mm-hmm.
that strength is creating boundaries and seeking help.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Being an advocate for mental illness and normalizing those conversations because so many of us go through it, whether it's situational, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times our depression can be situational or the anxiety can be situational and then other times it's a long-term thing that people have been dealing with and just they've just been silent and quiet and just didn't know how to have those conversations. So thank you for being willing to bring that conversation to the forefront because it is definitely needed. And I was really thinking about how are we really doing now with being in this pandemic for since March, this 7 or 8 months. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
how has our mental health really been impacted, through this time because it's this is a difficult place. Um
Yeah.
Difficult place for so many people for so many different reasons. And I was really thinking that. And, are the people really having these conversations? Is there a safe outlet to really just talk about it, or to really just, you know, be honest about it. And if I'm not mistaken, there are several hotlines that you can talk to somebody for free, if I'm not
Absolutely.
mistaken,
Hmm.
now. So that's really a good thing. So I love your story. I love your obedience. I love the mindset. I'm gonna bet on me and the time is now. I love that. So how do you navigate now with not having this regular, like say 9 to 5, right? And so
Hmm.
now you have a lot of free time, but you have to manage that time, right? In order to
Hmm.
be successful. So how do you navigate from not having this consistent to now being your own boss?
Oh, it's so hard because I want to fire me every day. I
Wait, you want to fire you every day? What are you doing?
yes. Entrepreneurship takes a level of discipline and structure that I never imagined. My dreams of entrepreneurship was you do what you want when you want.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to, when you're the face of the business and when you're a solopreneur,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be on 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely create boundaries for yourself, like, I'm not going to check emails after 5 p.m, things like that. But like my sleep schedule, my planning out my activities for the week, planning each Zoom, even when money comes in, whether it's, an honorarium, a love token, or a paid engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have to be budgeting this money because it's
Mm-hmm.
not like every 2 weeks I have consistent money. So I
Right.
have to put this money to the side and make sure that, it's doing what it's supposed to do to sustain me. So it's definitely a growing process for me
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times, even as a overcomer of mental illness, there are a lot of times where I just am not feeling it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But being the face and being the product, I have to push through that
Mm-hmm.
every time
Mm-hmm.
because somebody is always watching, and somebody is always, randomly reaching out, being impacted by something I'm either doing or have already done. And God gives me the unction and the grace to push through every time, but it can be difficult when you are used to, being at a strict 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
where after you clock out, that's it.
Mm-hmm. So you hear that, navigators? You are going to have to increase your discipline if you want to
Mm-hmm.
be an entrepreneur, solopreneur. All right. Increase your discipline and your time management and your boundaries. Discipline, discipline, discipline has to be a part of your diet to become a successful entrepreneur. Well, guys, we have definitely enjoyed talking to Lauren Spearman, the bounce back advocate. And before we go, what is the message, the core of your being that you want to leave with the listeners?
Absolutely. So I want everybody to know, whoever is out there, whoever is listening, if you are not happy in where you are in your life or in what you are doing, if you have been sitting on the dream of starting a business, sitting on the dream of writing a book, sitting on the dream of starting a blog, um, you know, being a life coach, or anything that God has put inside of you that you are meant to do, but you are so scared to leave your comfortable box of safety net, the time is now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, because life is so short. And if you don't act on what's lying dormant inside of you, eventually you're going to die with that dream. And a lot of times, your dream and you realizing your dream is connected to other people getting their healing and their deliverance and their breakthrough. So be obedient and go after your dreams. You can do it.
All right. Be obedient, go after your dreams. You can do it. The time is now, navigators. You hear that? The time is now. Okay. Lauren, before we go, I know I talked about your podcast earlier, but I have one more question. As a
Sure.
podcaster, I have like favorite episodes that I've done on my own podcast. What is your favorite episode that you've done so far on your podcast?
Okay. It's season 2,
Okay.
the first episode. I had a very tough conversation with one of my actual friends.
Mm,
There was a period of time this summer where something transpired and we kind of had a falling apart. And, there were people in my ear, there were people in her ear, and we were able to sit down on the podcast and really tell each other, well, this is how I was feeling on my side. And she said how she was feeling on her side. And we were able to really flush that thing out and learn about each other and how we can be better friends to each other in the future. Talking about love languages. A lot of people talk about love languages in reference to a male female relationship or a romantic relationship, but we don't think about it in terms of how our friends need us.
mm,
So it was just a very enlightening episode about sisterhood, friendship, not throwing every friendship away because you're upset.
mm-hmm.
And then at the end, spoiler alert, she asked me to be her baby's godmother. So
Oh,
that's my favorite, hands down.
awesome. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that one. Yes, thank you. So before we go, again, we have Lauren Spearman, the bounce back advocate. Lauren, let the navigators know how they can connect with you, all of your social media handles, and the name of your podcast. Let them know.
Absolutely. So you can check out Check on Your Strong Friends podcast on all major streaming platforms. Instagram, you can check me out at Check on Your Strong Friends all together. My personal Instagram is at the Lauren Spearman. And on Twitter, I am Podcaster Friend.
All right. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being with us and sharing your time with the listeners. And thank you, navigators, for listening to this episode. And until next time, keep going, navigators. Bye bye.
Bye.